Well, welcome everyone to Monday equals MC squared. Here we go with the Monday again. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what's going on this month? A lot. I wrote down all kinds of stuff. I don't even know where to start. But I just had this feeling like I need to pull a card today before I get started. So some of you probably have this cards, and I have multiple. I have many ones that I use, right? But I was called to the animal spirit today. I actually just kind of held the card. I didn't feel like shuffling because something said, nope, you already know which one to pull. So I just pulled the one from actually the bottom, and it's perfect. It's the Spirit Fox. And can you see? I know it's upside down, isn't it? But it's the fox. It's not upside down. Or, okay. So can you see what it says on the bottom? I'll read it to you. Trust your talents in changing times. Oh my gosh, this is what I was going to talk about today. So it was just perfect. I thought something, this card was going to help me today. And I will just read a little bit of what he says. And it's from Kyle Gray. He's a pleasant man to listen to. If you've never listened to him, he's got kind of a pleasant voice. You should listen to him. And the one I got it from is the Angels and Ancestors Oracle cards, for those of you that are interested. Okay. I have many different ones, but this is the one that was calling for me today. I think the winter is winter and spring maybe is the time that I really reach for the animal's spirit. Particularly birds are pretty amazing right now. And I would say coyotes and foxes are really active for our yard. And we've been getting a lot of bucks, right? Is that a buck? Is that called? Yeah, they even come up to our yard. We don't really understand. They have plenty to eat down below, but they come up to our ridge and come up to our yard. So, but anyway, it says the spirit fox features my favorite animal of all time, the red fox. An amazing, resilient creature able to survive in urban environments or the freezing temperatures of the Arctic. Foxes know what it's like to be hunted. For centuries, they have been sought for their precious fur when all they want is to survive. So the spirit fox can help you overcome the energies of adversity and unfair treatment. Wow, I haven't even read this. This is what I was feeling. I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Also, as urban foxes hide in cities and go about their business in the darker hours, the fox offers the medicine of belonging in. No, I'm sorry, not belonging, blending in. Okay, and then so extended message says the energies around you are changing at this time. Yeah, right. And although it may not always be comfortable, no, you are, those are my little quotes I'm putting in. No is me. Okay. You are equipped with all that you need to survive this shift. You're being presented with opportunities to reach spaces you've never encountered before. And this can make you feel on edge, but be open to the shifts occurring because they really are the answers to your prayers. The experience of being hunted or threatened is now behind you, and you are being invited to come out from your den and reveal your glory and talents. Call upon Spirit Fox medicine to help you be seen for who you are and trust in your talents in order to be the best you can be in these challenging times. Okay, so I'll show you the picture one more time. It's very important that you really look into it. Okay, that's what his interpretation is, but you may have a different interpretation. And you can kind of see the feathers, right, that he's carrying, or she. You see that wise eyes, just kind of looking into the distance, getting the big picture. That's kind of what I'm feeling, getting the big picture. All right. Oh, and there's a symbol, a sacred symbol in the, do you see that? The chest area? I hope the glare is not, yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. So this is, oh yeah, and the third eye, he has a tremendous like a design on his third eye. I don't know, you can see it. I hope you really could see it. I'm going to tilt it so you could see better. Can you see that? Like a diamond shaped, and yeah, spade. What is that shape? Yeah, it's just like a really intricate shape on his third eye. Oh, and I'm finding more, everyone. I'm finding more. There's a spiral at the fox's tail that we've been working on. Remember, everybody's been working on our foxy tails recently, fluffing that tail up and getting your tailbone connected to who you are, inhabiting your tailbone. Okay. Well, so this is perfect for me. I feel like I pulled that up for me. I'm just going to give you quickly what happened. So it was yesterday, last night. We were finishing up the bath and everything. And I thought, okay, I need to check in one more time with my email because I was scheduled to have an interview today that was going to air in January. And I was very, very excited about this interview. And I was excited about the person that was interviewing me and the topic. And so I put out all the materials that they need. You know, the interviewers have to write up all kinds of things before they get interviewed, like questions you'd like them to ask or the topic that you're going to be discussing. And so I did all that. I set up the date for today. And then last night, just to double check, I checked the email and it says it was canceled. The interview was canceled. And I actually did not see that email because I didn't check emails much this weekend. And so it was sent to me on a Friday evening or something like that. I did not see it. And it said that there's so much interest and the slot filled up. And I'm thinking to myself, this doesn't make any sense because I was in touch with the interviewer by text and we were going back and forth. And she was very excited to interview me, to bring the topic of more inhabiting, dwelling inside your body and bringing the importance of the body piece back into the spiritual world. And the conversations that she's been having for years with other spiritual teachers to kind of have a different perspectives on the physiology side. So I was extremely confused. So I was sitting there first, extremely confused, like I said. Then I was really saddened by it. And I thought, what happened? So then I just took deep breaths, released them out, settled in my body. And then when I muscle tested, I said, first, I go straight to my old pattern. Was it me? That's the question I asked myself. Was it me? Did I do something? Did I present something that she didn't want to talk about? I don't know. And so, you know, it's funny because your fight or flight part of the brain, limbic part of the brain just starts like firing. I could feel my heat rising up. I felt heated. I started sweating. And you have to understand, when I take a bath, it was a beautiful magnesium bath. Afterwards, I do ice cold water for like almost 5 minutes on my body. So I don't sweat after I come out of the bath. I'm like literally like cold to touch. That's what I do to increase my blood flow and other things too, to kind of keep my body healthy. But I started sweating just thinking about it when I asked myself, was it me? And my body said, no. My body was like, no, it's not you. And I said, was it what I presented? Nope. I started, but then, so everything was no. And then I asked myself one more question. I said, would this get resolved? Like, am I going to get interviewed? Something gets resolved in this. And it said, yes. So I thought, okay, that's good. But then, oh my gosh, my brainstem into my limbic part of the brain started kicking in. And my ego was like, no, we're not done asking the questions. So started asking again. And now it was not my settled space that was asking the questions. I started to ask again, like, is this over? Am I not going to be interviewed for this? And my muscle test is like, am I going to get interviewed? No. Was it you? Was it me? Yes. Yes. You know, was it what I presented? Yes. I mean, everything started to just throw like all my old patterns. It's my fault. I didn't do it right. I must not have handed in at the right timing. And anyway, the whole time I am dislocated, fragmented. I am not in alignment with who I am. I was starting to hunch forward. I mean, my physiology was totally showing what my muscle testing was doing to me. It was just, it was hard. And then, so I just sat with it and I told Chris, and he can chime in, but he basically just looked at me and said, I don't know, that's strange. It's very strange, but you know what? Maybe a new opportunities will show up. And so I was able to let go. I slept really well. But what happened was that last night I was lying there and I looked at Chris and I said, you know, I really want to start to write things that are so much fun, like things that make me want to go, yes, I want to write about this. It's like so exciting. And I told them this entire story, a fiction story that I want to write. And I'm not going to tell you because it was so good, but I told them from the beginning to the end, and I just made it up. I just said, okay, one thing shut the door, another thing opens. I'm going to be creative, and this is what I want to write. And I told them all about this one person's journey, and from the beginning to the end. And in my mind, I wrote the book already. I thought, where did that even come from? I have no idea. But anyway, the thing is, in the past, I would have been tossing and turning all night. My body will heat up and cool off. And it's like hot flashes. You know, even I'm not having hot flashes. I will have emotional hot flashes. But I didn't. Chris said, oh, just soak into that creative character that you just created for your book. And so I did. I tuned in. I went into my dream zones. It was fabulous. And I woke up this morning and I opened the email. Both the assistant and the interviewer both were profusely apologizing to me, like, something went wrong. That was not the email. Oh my gosh, no, we have to reschedule this. This wasn't supposed to happen. So anyway, I guess I'm just sharing this because, you know, in Zen or the Buddhism, you know, we say first thought, right thought kind of a thing. And my first initial muscle testing was like, no, it's not you. Why do you always go there? Why do you always think it's your fault? That has decades of history with me. And, you know, it makes me almost tear up because everything was my fault growing up. Everything. If my sister was crying, that was because of my fault, right? If my parents are fighting, because it was my fault. Everything was always my fault. So I definitely went there. But I also saw a very two different kind of muscle testing. And this is what we started talking about last week, right? It's this different archetype that comes over and takes over and answers your muscle testing. But you have to be so careful about which eye that is answering my own muscle testing. And I was able to shift it and go, okay, I don't need to listen to that side that constantly blames me for everything that goes down. So anyway, I think it's not surprising for me that I pulled the Spirit Fox, because trust your talents in changing times is what I needed to hear, is that I need to trust myself. And I didn't pull this just for myself. I pulled it for the group. Okay. So I think that's what's going to be, many of you might be experiencing this. I would love to hear it in your chat. It's been intense again, but what is so intense about it is the letting go of your old patterns. That's been so intense. And it's just, the universe just gives you one more lesson and go, what about now? Have you truly let go of it? What about this time? Have you let go of it? And each time, please, everyone, come back to this physiology. Inhabit your space. Inhabit your feet. Feet are one of my favorite places to work on. That's what the areas that I've always worked on the very first time when I started working with my clients, is to roll on a golf ball, get the fascia moving, the K1 point. So that's the kidney 1 point. That's the spring that wells up from the ground that supports you. Work on your feet. If your feet are not grounded in their root system, they're not in contact with the earth, your muscle testing will be just like my second muscle testing, which blamed me for everything, basically told me I was no good. Then I even started to say, nobody wants to hear my message. I have nothing to share. I mean, it was really, I didn't go there for more than about, what, Chris, do you think 3 minutes? I was in there for about 3 minutes. Yeah. So anyway, please share maybe some of it you're going through, but it's truly contending and living with and balancing many different archetypes that live with you. They all show up at the dinner table. They all show up at the emails. They all show up when the phone rings. So for me, there were several that showed up just last night. But I was able to at least come back to my body and recognize that, whoa, I stepped out of my body. I was not inhabiting my body. I truly came out and I was actually witnessing myself going into a spiral. So I'm back. So it's a good thing. But I will hand it over to Chris for a moment and maybe he can give you some observations of what he was seeing in me.
You know, I think instead of observations on that, because you covered it really well, I want to go back to what we talked about last week, because what we also asked all of you to do is to think about what are your patterns. We introduced you to two of our internal characters last week. Each of us has one that's fairly dominant that comes out. And I wanted to just reiterate that these internal characters, I mentioned last week that it's almost like we have our own internal round table. So we have this committee, and in the committee, you know, if you know anything about the psychometrics and the different personality tests and the different types, whether it's the Myers-Briggs test or emergenetics or some of these different modalities that we use to look at different personality preferences, all of those tendencies are in us and they all have a voice. But what happens is a couple of those voices really have an outsized clout in the committee. Just like if you've ever worked on a committee with other people, there's always a small number of people or an individual that really, really has a loud voice more than others. And so what we have to learn to do, just like in a real external committee, is to balance it out and find ways to share the stage and to share the opportunities to speak. But these characters that we named in ourselves last week are—
Do you want to name it? Do you want to name it again?
Yeah, we talked about Masami's, we were calling it squishy, because it was this amoeba-like energy that sort of oozed into her heart, you know, from this amorphous sort of thing. And then mine was this little flat character that comes out when my energy gets low. And so these are reactive patterns. And that's what I wanted to say. They're reactive, they're self-protective, they come up at moments where we feel threatened, and they have their own version of history. They have their own scripts, they have their own vocabulary, they have their own phrases that they use. And this is something that, again, the more that you can pay attention to when these things come up without even trying to do anything with it, you don't have to stop it even. Just pay attention to it happening. Notice when these tendencies come up, how they speak, how does your self-talk run? What's the script of your self-talk when one of these characters gets triggered? Because I can tell you the one that was active last night from Masami wasn't this one that we called squishy. It was a totally different character. We haven't named it yet, but it wasn't that one. And so I wanted to just bring that to the surface again, because what we were talking about for the theme today, and this might be a good way to just ease into that, is the question of what is the foundation that you need to build for, well, we could just say for the coming year, but really just moving forward from now. What is the foundation that you need to build? And what are the qualities of that foundation that really need your special attention? I would put forward that for all of us, and I absolutely include myself in this because I had a little touch of my own reactive patterns today, for no real reason. It was just an old pattern that got triggered. And for me, it was a totally different character from the little Mr. Flat we talked about. This is one that comes up in the presence of my own ignorance, when I feel like I'm being asked for information I don't have. And so that's a whole other character that comes up. And it's another reactive pattern. It's another self-protecting pattern. And it has a way of speaking, a way of holding its own space. And so I want to just ask you this again. What is the foundation that you need to build? What are the qualities of it? And include in that awareness of some of your own internal cast of characters that are trying to speak right now. And is it something that's serving you? Is it something that is useful to the life that you want to create moving forward? Or is it detrimental? Is it pulling you back? Is it dragging you down? Because the story that it wants to tell isn't one that's serving you. But I would also say it's one that needs to be heard at least once in full, so that that voice can keep quiet for a little while. So that's the big question. Foundation, and then what is serving you and what needs to move forward and what do you need to leave behind? And just very quickly, I'm going to say, many of you here, looking at the names on the participants today, have already joined our Waymaking course. Retreat is what we're calling it. It's not a course, but our end of the year communal ritual and coming together that we're doing on the 30th. And so it's great to see you there already. But one of the things that is so important about this process, again, is this taking stock and taking this time to review the year, contemplate what has happened, what served and what didn't serve, where I need to go in the next year. Because I have to say it, everyone, we're coming into another year of complete unknowns. Okay? We don't know what's coming. We can speculate and predict all we want, but we really don't know. And so knowing that there is more unknown coming our way, what is going to best position us to receive it and work with it and move with it? I can tell you I have a few patterns I don't want to bring forward. And some of them are these reactive characters. Maybe they don't need to be gone completely, but they need a little bit of a mute button on them. So another thing I wanted to say is, for the Waymaking, we have it set up to really focus on having each one of us contemplate the year, review what's happened, where we would like to open up from there. And, you know, this is something that Masami's mentioned this to me a number of times, is that in Japan, for example, and I remember this from my time living there, people really take until about the middle of January to complete this process. And it's a very deliberate practice. So anywhere up until about the 15th of January is a good time to continue on with this reflection and contemplation. So even if you're not able to join on the live call on the 30th, that's okay. You can take the recording and allow that to guide you through and still complete that process anytime that works for you up until around that time of the middle of January. Okay, I'll stop there. I've been talking for a few minutes.
Well, I think, yeah, please do look into the Waymaking. I think it's going to be great. We're going to be doing a lot of reviewing, but revisiting and revising your story, because it's time, isn't it? Like, I can't keep on bringing the same story to the next 2022. And if I do, I want to be able to shift away from it quicker and quicker each time, so that I'm getting good at shifting away from that kind of thinking. And that's one thing that I was proud of myself last night. Like I said, I would have been tossing and turning all night wondering, what did I do wrong? But I didn't do any of that. And I slept really well. Part of it is because I've been working on getting out of that kind of a pattern and going into that zone where I just like to heat up the part of my brain that just goes, you know, danger, danger, fear, fear, something is not working right. And that part of the brain loves to ignite all the time in many of us, and actually most of us, because in order to survive this long as human race, we had to have that part of the brain, particularly the amygdalas, those little danger, danger buttons that's constantly pushing. And what happens physically is very important that you pay attention to. I gave you a couple examples of what happened with me. I felt like I just snapped out of my body, like I left my body, first of all, but also I heat up. I became super hot. And I just the heat started to rise up into my head. That's another thing that I noticed about myself. And I would sometimes pace around. And I know that I'm not breathing very well because I'm starting to get hunched, like I'm trying to protect myself from getting attacked. So those are a couple of things that they happen to me. Maybe you want to figure out what happens to you. So, and I'm sure Chris has forgotten about this, but this was not yesterday, but the day before. He was having kind of really after lunch or something, he was just not really engaging. And it was actually yesterday. That's right. We went to the nearby hardware store to get some paint. And we were standing there asking some questions about the outside paint, because this is about the paint that we have to do on the exterior. And so we needed to discuss this with the guy that worked at the paint place. And so he's telling us what to do, what to mix, and Chris is just not engaging. And I can tell when you've been with somebody for that long, you start to say, I think he did not understand anything that just went on, not because it was a complicated language or anything. It's just he's not able to take on anything. And so I started to think about it. I started to tune into him, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he is not digesting. And also that the hardware stores with the fume is really impacting his system. So when we got back, I didn't even ask him. I didn't even muscle test them on him. I just muscle tested for him. And I grabbed a couple of hydrochloric acid. I grabbed him some B vitamins, particularly B6 and B1, and folate was in there also. And I just handed those things to him. And I think I even gave you quercetin too. I just said, just take these. And it was literally within 3 minutes, he just kind of like woke up from the somber, like I don't know where he was at. So please, the body is always traveling with you. So please look for systematic, holistic way of looking at your body and say, what is not coming with me right now? Even though I'm trying to do something with my mind, my body is being left behind. Well, you can't leave it behind to do things that you want to do in your life. You have to come with it. All of it, body, mind, spirit, will have to show up together as a unit. So that's what I ended up suggesting for Chris, and I just gave it to them. And maybe, Chris, you could chime in and say what you felt, immediately the shift was happening because you came home to your body.
Yeah, this is an important piece of this conversation around what the foundations are that are needed, because I can tell you all from my experience, I've had things like major injuries, things that create chronic pain, and that can be a trigger for a similar kind of thing. But digestion is huge, and for me, pain and digestive issues typically will do what Masami just described. They'll make me kind of step back. It's kind of like checking out a little bit, where I just disengage. And I could even tell that this was happening even as we were going over to the hardware store. We were in the car and I said, wow, my energy level's really dialing down. And it just kind of continued on, and I could feel that. And when that happens, and this is why it's so important to notice these things, and it's even better if you have somebody point them out to you, but I can tell you when you're in it, it's hard to hear it. Because when you're in the low energy state, whether it's from pain or poor digestion or poor sleep, that's when those reactive characters come out. And suddenly, whatever's going on, is everyone else's fault. The whole world is to blame for whatever is going on that is not working for you. And it's very, very easy to go there. I mean, just imagine being in that state of feeling exhausted, feeling disconnected, feeling like you don't have energy to deal with whatever situation is, even if it's simple, like we're talking about a can of paint. I mean, it was not a technical conversation, but I had very little going on cognitively at that point. I just couldn't really say much. And so sure enough, once we were able to address the foundation, and it's that literal when we're talking about foundations, we don't have to get really abstract. It can be that concrete of a thing. When we address the foundation that needed attention, the system came back online. And it is really remarkable how quickly it can happen. Some of these patterns that are foundational, they take more time. It might be a matter of weeks or months, sometimes years, like in a long-term healing or detox process. But this is what we're actually talking about when we're talking about what foundations need to be strengthened. Where do you need to support your whole system moving forward? And the best place to look first is in your physical body, because that's the first area where the energy leakage is going to happen. And the energy that your body uses and produces is the very same energy that your mind uses. Okay? So if you are leaking energy out on a physical level because of a foundation issue, you're not going to have the energy for the things you want and the things that you might even need that are more of an emotional or cognitive kind of level of activity. Okay, so this is taking us back to that same question. What are the foundations that you need to address?
And I'm going to take that a little bit further, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts too, Chris, because we didn't, quite discuss this. But the foundation, so what we're talking about here is that when your basic needs and your foundations are being out of alignment, or maybe some things you're not paying enough attention to, or something like that, but let's call it out of alignment. Okay. So I want you to, all of you, just kind of tune into yourself for a moment. If closing your eyes really helps to kind of tune in, that's fine. But I want you to feel into your body and see what areas of your body feel out of alignment. Okay, so we're going to start with the body first, and I'll give you some examples. And wherever your attention goes, that's fine. Okay, maybe some of you are having some TMJ, jaw pain. Maybe that will translate to neck and shoulders. There might be some out of alignment there. And we create out of alignment in the jaw area because first of all, maybe the joints are not quite matching together. So you end up eating at the one side of your mouth more often than not. So this is something you want to pay attention. Also, do you always chew at your right side or left side? Okay. And then from there, if you're in other areas of the body, that's okay too. If you want to follow along, that's fine too. And sometimes we can get so out of alignment with one eye versus the other. So if you have your eyes closed, feel into the right eye first, back of the eyeball, and see if that side feels a little more exhausted, or what's been going on maybe feels a little dry. And then shift your attention to the left side. Does it feel a little more tired out and exhausted? Does it feel dry? Maybe you're getting like a sticky things, mucousy productions in your eye too. Just noticing what is out of alignment right now. And don't worry about the brain too much. Brain will respond to what's out of alignment underneath the brain, okay? And we often will hear things more from the one ear than the other ear, okay? So what's your right ear doing? The left ear. So you're just checking in. Not trying to fix anything, but you want to become aware of this foundational level of alignment issues. And then moving down to your shoulders and your arms. And you might be one of those lucky people that use both hands, ambidextrous, but many of us are not. So see which hand, which right or left you're overly using. And see if you could bring your intelligence, your wisdom down to the palm of your hands, so your hands can answer these questions for you. So you're not answering them from your mind. Ask your hands, how are you doing, hands? Do I need to know anything about you? Do you have any wisdom to share, hands? Really deeply listen in and see if maybe there's a little bit out of alignment going on. Maybe the left is saying, yeah, I'd like to be more involved in this. Not just carry groceries, but I'd like to maybe turn the key or open the door, or maybe I want to be lifting the glass of water with my left hand more. And vice versa. So listen to the wisdom. What's out of balance and out of alignment? And moving down your lungs. Feel into your lungs. Are you breathing into the right and left? Both? Or are you hunching at one side? Maybe one shoulder is sloping down on one side, so that crushes your lung on your left or your right. And that doesn't allow both lungs to fully expand and fully release the air. And then connecting with your front of your torso and the back of your torso. Are you aligned? Are you balanced between the front, where you're wanting to go with your life, and what you have left behind and the things that you still need to sort out? We have so much more luggage and the past patterns that we carry behind us than the patterns that we have been working on for the future. So we kind of live in an out of balanced world. So see if you could balance out, okay, these are some of the old patterns I've been really working on letting go since June, maybe since March, since I started talking about this year. And then balance that out with what you wish to fulfill and achieve, and what is your purpose in life that will come to you, that's reaching from the future inward. The future is reaching for you. So balance what's reaching for you and what you no longer need to carry and reach behind. And coming down to your pelvic floor, right and left. Maybe you want to wiggle a little bit. And when you go wiggle right to left or circle, you may notice that it's not as smooth going from one side to the other. Or you might feel a little bit like, oh yeah, if I go to the right, there's a little thing that catches me. It's a little sharp and it feels like tugging at my fascia a little bit. Remember, your fascia memorizes all your experiences and communicates that back and forth to your bones. So see if you could balance these out. What are some of the memories that you're carrying and that's getting triggered into your balancing of your bones? Can you let go of some of them? Can you release some of the work that the fascia has to do all the time? By letting go and releasing, forgiving. Yes, we can. We all can. And coming down your legs, noticing your one leg, right leg and the left leg, front of your legs and the back of your legs. We all have one calf that is bigger or stronger than the other calf. We all do. Maybe take a moment, ask your calves for their wisdom. You might say, how may I support you so you're a lot more balanced and in alignment? Maybe you stand on your left side all the time. Or maybe you cross your leg. The right leg is always over your left knee. Notice what you're doing. The wisdom from your calves will be profound. And in Japan, we call calves your second heart. So your second heart has something to tell us. What you're desiring inside you, in your second chakra, what you would love to express your heart center. They have to be supported by your calves because you have to take actions. You have to move forward in your life using your calves so you can express your desires. So they don't just stay dormant, stuck in your pelvic floor. So use your calves and moving down now to your ankles. Do they feel stable? Do they rotate outward or inward? How are your Achilles heels, Achilles tendons? Do they feel tight? Are they tugging at one side or the other? Alignment, bring the alignment back. Going down to your Achilles tendons and ask them for their wisdom. Maybe you're having a hard time feeling the nice opening right at the ankles. You feel tight all the time in that region. Maybe your ankles have something they want to share with you. You can ask the questions like, why? Why am I feeling so tight there, Achilles? Ankles, help me. And wait for their wisdom to guide you. And coming down to the tops of your feet and the bottom of your feet. Do you tend to roll out to the side of your feet? Do you collapse your arches? What's happening there? It's the weight of the changes in the world and maybe what you're listening and what you're engaging in. Maybe that's just too much. You don't have enough silence. So your arches are collapsing from the weight of what you're worrying about, what you're seeking so much of and not finding. Can you find the bottom of your feet that's connected to the earth? The spring that wells up, the spring that moves from the ground up into the bottom of your feet. Can you feel them on both feet? Maybe you can feel more on the right, but you might not be feeling much of that. The spring that is bubbling up underneath you on the left. Ask your feet, the bottom of your feet, for their wisdom. And go into your toes. Relax your toes. Are you gripping? Are you always gripping into the earth? Can you let go? Soften up your toes. Can you have spaces between your toes? Or are they all jammed up? Like putting the entire family of 5 into a crammed up car or something? Or can you have a little more spaciousness between them? They all have different things they want to tell you. Pinky toes have their own voices. The big toe have their own wisdom. Noticing, what do they have to say to you? Are they telling you to grip onto the earth? Or are they telling you to relax, relax? And coming back to your 2nd and 3rd chakra area right in your torso. I'm going to ask you some foundation questions about your body and the physiology. How's the balance between the hydration that comes purely from water versus caffeine or bubbly water or some other sources? How are you balancing those things? You're not judging, you're just checking in. The body may say, you know, we're good with that caffeine. Or maybe your body will say, yeah, you know what? I really would like for you to go for the pure water once in a while. How about the balance between the time you spend in front of the screen versus the time you spend looking out the window or being in nature? How are you balancing that? It's not good or bad. It's not all being out in nature is always 100% perfect. That's not what this is about. It's about your innate balance. When you spend 3 hours in front of the screen, do you need to go outside for a half an hour? Ask your inner wisdom. I can go on, but I'll ask one more. On the physical level, how much of the balance between the silence, stillness, and the sounds and the noise are you balancing? Are you always listening to something that comes from the outside in? Do you have enough time when you are actually silent? Do you take time to have almost no thoughts, which seems impossible? But can you have moments of nothing going on inside you? You feel complete. How balanced are you there? And slowly give yourself a slight smile towards yourself. Bringing your hands together at the heart center. Give yourself a deep gratitude for that inner wisdom that it's just always available for you. Even down to your fingernails, they have the wisdom they want to share with you. And as you bow, let's bow towards yourself for your inner wisdom. Thank you, body. Thank you, everyone. I have no idea where that came from, but it just went into a spontaneous going inward. And it felt really good for me to listen to my own inner wisdom. Some other areas of your alignments that you want to look into. I've talked about, different areas of your body, right and left, front and back, top and bottom also, okay? But macronutrients is also important too. And maybe Chris has something that he wants to chime in about this, but making sure that your protein intake, fats intake, and the carbohydrates intake are nicely balanced. And for some of you that have taken my courses, I have shared the importance of the balance between macronutrients. Because if you're eating too much carbohydrates, you're going to find yourself grazing all day long. you'll have a lunch, and then 10, 20 minutes, half an hour later, you'll be circling around the kitchen looking for that one special thing. That means your other two macronutrients were not balanced in what you ate. Okay. So those are some of the things that you want to definitely bring back in. Other things I wrote up in my notes are action versus rest. Okay. How much of it are you taking actions on? And how much of it are you able to sit back and let things unfold, the rest? And the balance between the night and the daylight, right? So the starlight, the moonlight, and how much of the sunlight are you getting? Those are very important balances. And another balance that we can't forget about is your nervous system, right? So your parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system balance. It's always about the balance. It's not that, your parasympathetic nervous system is better than a sympathetic nervous system. It has nothing to do with it. If you didn't have the sympathetic nervous system that gets you up in the morning and get your cortisol coming up, and so you can say, I'm in action and I can get out of bed and I can get things done, that's your sympathetic nervous system kicking in. If you don't have that, you'll just be bed resting all day long, and you won't be able to even get out of bed till 2 in the afternoon. So that's not good either. So how are you balanced, right? Okay. So Chris, you have anything? And maybe there's some chats that coming in. So
Yeah, that was a really necessary reminder to go back and look at what our bodies are doing. I was reminded of a couple of things as you were doing that. One for me personally from the past few days. I've been feeling some weight from work-related things, and I noticed that, no big surprise really, but I felt like I was wearing a heavy backpack. I could tell that my posture was really starting to be affected. And so one of those things is to pay attention, because when you're in stress, there's actually a very familiar reaction, which is we slump. That's part of our stress response to protect our hearts and protect our bodies and protect our core and our organs, our vital organs. And so we do this slump or slouch in stress. And it's really important to notice and to come back up and hold that posture and note that difference. It's a night and day difference when you really feel the curve of your sacrum engage and you feel your lungs open up in the front. It's a very different experience when you're able to stand up completely and lift. And it's not a strained movement. It's actually very natural, but we become so familiar with that stress pattern that we just stay in that slump. And another thing that really struck me was that part about silence. We've talked about before the importance of closing your eyes to get the rest and relaxation, because it cuts out 80% of your sensory input to your nervous system. But, Masami and I had an experience over the weekend also. We were up in the mountains and we were sitting there just quiet for a minute. And the silence was so profound that it shook something, it was like an echo in a canyon where you're the only person in the whole place. And it's like a wake up from somewhere very deep within when you're in the silence. So it's so important. And it reminded me also of a story that I heard from somebody that used to run a program bringing kids from urban areas out to the wilderness to have outdoor nature encounters. And one of the comments that he would hear from kids is, at some point, someone in the group, these are middle school kids, and they would just stop and look around. They'd say, "What is that sound? What's that sound?" And somebody would have to say to them, "It's called silence." They never experienced silence before. And it was like the absence of sound itself became a sound to them. It's that profound. And it's something that we sometimes panic when we get close to it, because it's touching that deep well within us. And sometimes it feels much too vast to tolerate it. But if we can just stay there, the creativity that comes out and the relaxation and the energy that gets restored from there, from within us, it's profound. So I wanted to mention those things. And there are a couple of things that, let me just jump to the chat. We just have a minute or so left, but a couple of people commented on the meditation. Cynthia said that was fantastic and much needed. Thank you so much. And Claudia said, so much appreciation for allowing space for the body to speak. Mind, body, heart coherence. And that's what you get. You get more of that coherence when you slow down and you welcome the feedback that's there, instead of trying to steer it or make it into something that it isn't. Roxana says, thanks, though I'm very aware of my body, I found some new areas that do need attention. Sharon said, ditto, Claudia and Roxana. Mary says, oh, that helps me understand some of what's going on. And Richard says, one thing I do often is stand up on my tippy toes when brushing my teeth. It helps the calves in my legs. I do other movements when brushing my teeth also. And that's a really good point, Richard, because if you probably just intuitively did it, but people have actually researched this and have found that if you do things like that while brushing your teeth, you're much more likely to make a habit of it and to start increasing your awareness. So that's a really good thing you caught there. And then finally, one last comment, we can just call it from the mailbag. It was an email that came in about the lung retreat that somebody just did. And again, this was just self-guided. They did it from the recorded version, not the live one. And she said, last Monday, I started the lung retreat and did the first day. Wow, with like 8 exclamations. Girl, you knocked it out of the park. This was to Masami, not me. On the guided meditation. I cracked wide open on the grandparent, great-grandparent part. Wow. Then continued to have releases the next couple of days. One was so unusual, sensations I have never felt before. It's hard to even describe. I look forward to doing the other 2 days. So a lot of these things it's powerful to do it together as a group. There's a different energy, but you can also take it inward in your own time and in your own space. So don't underestimate the power of doing that either. Okay.
Yeah, and as we're wrapping up today, I wanted to read an email that came today. She had been sick for a while, like a flu-like symptoms. And then she said, I reached out to my girlfriends and one brought me broth and coconut water. That's one way of changing past patterns, asking for help when I really need it. Another is reaching out to people I value and not only in crisis. That's a big one. Yeah, that's true, isn't it? We tend to not reach out unless like everything's collapsing, right? A big thank you to you and Chris for taking the tome to connect us all again and sharing your wisdom. So you're welcome. And I know you will get better because you are changing your patterns. So it is important, everyone, that you do take this month and do all that you can to begin to notice what's out of alignment. And another thing that you want to all look into is like, am I a giver? Am I a receiver? But also that depends on the situation. Okay. I work with a lot of people who are givers, but when it comes to certain things, they take and take and take also. So when are you balancing things out, right? Is it a nice flow? Because anytime you want to think about it like a river, if you dam up the river too much, that river dammed up part's going to start to stink and things going to start to grow and algae start to grow. So you don't want to always dam it up, right? But you also do not want to have a torrential rain that comes through and just washes the entirety of the river. That can be destructive. So it's always this balance, but this requires you to go inward and say, without judgment, say, wow, yes, when I'm in this situation, I'm such a giver. But when I'm in this situation, I hoard and I do not share any of it. And I take and take and take. Right. We all have these situations. So it's important you do this so you don't go into 2022 dragging the entirety of the last several decades with you again. You really don't want to do this. Like I said, the 2022 is going to go really fast. It's going to hit the ground running. You're not going to have the time to really slow down and check in with yourself as much as we can right now. So this is such a precious time. So please don't waste it. Okay. And I hope you will think about joining the Waymaking. Like I said, in Japan, we do the Waymaking into the middle of January. So if you can't show up on the 30th live, you can always do them for the next couple of weeks and get that set up so that you are ready and able and to receive and to give and have that alignment for 2022. Okay. Is that good, Chris? Are we good?
I think we're good. So
all right. You're welcome, Melinda. Thank you. And Claudia says the 30th is my birthday. Yay! And I think you've signed up. So thank you, Pauline. You look lovely as always. And all of you, thank you for showing your faces. I love seeing all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I love watching some of these thanks and love and lots of loves. So we love you. And we'll see you next week. Okay. So hang in there. Okay. And then the full moon's coming. Hang in there, everyone. You can do this. Okay. Bye, everyone.